Dear students, this is the third video for explaining the chapter Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. In the last paragraph that we have discussed, we saw that Nelson Mandela is talking about the goodness of man. In that paragraph he said at the end, the man's goodness is like flame that can be hidden, but it can be never extinguished. With that beautiful words, we'll continue the chapter. So in the next paragraph, Nelson Mandela is talking about two obligations of man. He says, every man has got twin obligations to fulfill in life. So what are those twin obligations? It is very important. There can be a question. According to Nelson Mandela, what are the twin obligations of a man? So if that question comes, you should write it. So please pay attention and try to understand what are the twin obligations of man according to Nelson Mandela. The first obligation of man is towards his family. Family means towards his parents, towards his wife and children. Then the next obligation, the second obligation of man is towards his people. People means towards his community and to his country. So in a civilized society, a free society, fulfilling this twin obligation is not very difficult. Any person could fulfill those obligations according to his ability. But Nelson Mandela says in South Africa, it was not that case. A person who is born black or a black person, it was very difficult for fulfilling these twin obligations. If any black person tried to fulfill the obligation towards his people, that means if he tried to liberate the black people or helped in any way, then he was punished and otherwise he had to live a secret life, leaving his own family and his own house. So he says in the beginning of his life, he was giving importance to his family only. But when he started serving the people, helping the people, or for the upliftment of his people, then he also had to leave his family and he was not able to fulfill the twin obligations. This is what he explains in that paragraph. In the next paragraph, Nelson Mandela says that when he was a small boy, he never felt the need for freedom because as a small boy, he was allowed to run around his small house and play. He was allowed to go to the stream or small river that was running through his village and swim in that river. And he was allowed to roast maize in the evening or night and eat. And also he was allowed to ride on the back of big bulls and all that. So he never felt that he is under some bondage or he is not free. If he had all the freedom. And as long as he obeyed his father and followed the customs of his own tribe, he never got any trouble. So as a young boy, he was not knowing that bondages, or he never felt that he is not free. So that is what is given in that small paragraph. But it is very important paragraph because a question can come. As a small boy, what was the understanding of freedom according to Nelson Mandela? or what was Nelson Mandela's understanding of freedom as a small boy. In the next paragraph, Nelson Mandela says that when he became a young person, he understood that his understanding of freedom as a boy was just an illusion. Illusion means something that appears to be real but not real. So, as a young person, he understood already his freedom is taken away from him. So, at first, he thought about only his individual freedom. As a young person, Mandela thought about only the transitory freedom. Transitory means which is not permanent. So he thought freedom means stay out at night as he wished, read whatever he wanted, go wherever he wanted. These were the some of the idea of freedom for him. But later on, when he was in Johannesburg, he understood some of the basic freedom of him was blocked, like achieving his potential. That means using his ability and achieving his goal in his life, and earning money according to his wish, and marrying and having a family. All this basic freedom he was not having. So he felt in a lawful society these kind of freedom or basic rights should not be blocked. This is what he explains in that particular paragraph. So in this paragraph also a question can come, that what was Nelson Mandela's understanding of freedom as a young man. In the next paragraph, Nelson Mandela says that slowly he realized that it was not only he was not having freedom, but his fellow beings, other black people also were not having their basic freedom. So that thought made him to join ANC, African National Congress. So his personal hunger for freedom became a greater hunger for the freedom of his people. So that desire for getting freedom for his own people, that made his life animated. Animated means active. And that transformed his life from a frightened young person to a bold person, from a family loving person to a homeless person, from a life loving person to a monk. So as a attorney, he was an attorney, means a lawyer, and from that position to a criminal into the eyes of government. So as a lawyer and all, he would have enjoyed better freedom than the common black people. But he understood that if others are not free, then I am not free. He felt freedom is indivisible. That is the word given there. Indivisible means cannot be divided. The chain that is on others is on me. That was his feeling. So he actively worked for the freedom of all black people till they achieved that freedom. This is what explained in that paragraph. Now we will see the last paragraph of the chapter. In the last paragraph, Nelson Mandela says something in a very philosophical way. So pay attention and try to understand. He says, the oppressor, one who takes away the freedom of others, is also not free, because he is in the prison of hatred feeling. So a person who take away the freedom of others is behind the bar of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. Prejudice means a strong dislike without any reason. So sometimes people have got a prejudice, like my state is the best state, other states are not good. My caste is the best caste, other castes are not good. My religion is the best one, and I hate other religions. This kind of thinking sometimes comes. That is called narrow-mindedness. So when we have this kind of thinking, sometimes we take away the freedom of others. In South Africa, the problem was the white were thinking that they were the supreme human beings. So they were treating black people as slaves. A prejudice it was. So Nelson Mandela says, the oppressor and the person who is being oppressed, both has to be liberated. Otherwise, the humanity, the human nature is taken away from both this oppressor and the one who is being oppressed. So this is what he tells in that paragraph, and that is the end of the chapter. Now I will give you some important questions that can come for the exam from this chapter. Those questions you can write it down in your copy and study properly. And in every past board exams, a question came from this chapter. So please study well this chapter, because it is very important chapter. So I hope you understood the chapter. After listening to the video, read the paragraphs again and again and keep it in your memory, the content. So we will meet in the next video. Until then, bye. Keep learning and be safe. Thank you.